Hello everyone. Today we're going to talk about server actions. But before, let me introduce myself. I'm Leonardo. I'm a software engineer from CodeMiner 42. As you can see, we are on their channel. And today we're going to talk about server action, NextJS server actions, because on NextJS 14, the server actions came out with it, and they are pretty cool. And I want to show them to you. So to start, we have a small demo app here called server actions. Are cool, indeed they are. That we have a calendar here, and we have some tasks, and we can add tasks to it. And we'll see with this, we'll start our building on top of it, the server actions to explain how they work, what they are useful for, what can we do with them, and how they integrate with the new React hooks that are coming in, such as the use add optimistic. I think no, it's just use optimistic. Yeah, that's right. Use from state and use from status. So to begin, let me show here the code. Oh, also there's an API running here. That's my backend, and there's like a 20% chance of it failing because I add like a dice there, and if the result of the dice is 5 or less, it's like a 20 dice. It's 5 or less, it will fail. But it just happens. So if you see some error here, it's because we'll deal with some error handling in the future in this app, and I had to add some errors to the application so we can deal with it. But anyways, here's the code. Well, it starts with the page here. As you can see, we have the, if you are not familiar with the React server components, this is one of them. We can see that it is one server component because we have the async function here. It symbolizes for us that this is running on our server. Like we have our server running here. It's here. This is where it's been rendered. And then we have here the fetch to the tasks. So when we prepare our component, it fetches it on our server, on our next server, and then it sends us to our client just the pieces, just the HTML that we need to render them. Like there's the React server component payload, and then it sends to the front end, and then it builds there. It's very nice. But anyways, we're here to see the server actions. And here we have our server action here. Our create task. We have the create task button here, and it has this form. It has this create task, and let's see how it looks inside. So to start, we have this user server directive here. It indicates for us that every function in this file is a server action. It's very important to have that. Without it, our code will not understand that this is a server action. But what exactly is a server action? This is a piece of code that we'll call it on our client side. And then after calling it on our client side, this will not run on our client side actually. Although we are calling it from our client side, on our create task here, it will be called on the backend side, on our server, on our next server. And then after being called there, it will send the result to us. So let us see. First here we have the use server, declaring that everything here is a server action indeed. And then have our create task. It gets the form data from our form and does a simple fetch here. So very easy. So let's see how we call it here. We just call it on action. Usually, if you are familiar with old, pre-React web development, like you are very familiar with the action, and then we send a URL here that made a post or get to our backend. And in this case, we are passing a function, not a string. But how does it work? This is a new thing from React that we can pass a function to the forms. And this function, if you see the signature of it, it will send our form data. So we do not need to have like a on submit here, and then get the event, and then after getting the event, we do like event.current target.form data. We do not need to do this today. We only need to send the action, and we already send the form data. And if you see, we also do not need any UseState here. Since we are already getting the form data from the form, we do not need to have control components here. We only need to have the input. So if you go back here we have our two inputs, the name and the date. This will be used to create our tasks for our calendar. Okay, and that's the basic usage of server action. So let's see it in action. So I will create a new task. and now you put it for the 17th of March. So let's, oops, sorry, 17th of March, submit, and nothing happened. Wait, what is going on? Let's see our backend here, our logs. So if you see our log, it's happening here. We have a transaction, we are creating our task. It has the right date here, 17 March, but we didn't see any update here. That's because this is just hitting the endpoint, and that's it. It does nothing else. If you want to have more stuff, if you want to have like the data being revalidated, the data showing here, then we need an extra process. But before we show that, let me just put a console.log here. Okay, let me save it here. And then let me put a console.log here, just so we see. Usually when we put a console.log, we expect the console to be here, right? Just this, expect it to be here. But in this case, after I submit my task, it does not appear here. It will appear right here in our next server logs, because it's running on our server side. So that's it. That's the basic usage of a server action. So let's go to the next step. That's revalidating the data, because we want to show the user that his action has a consequence. So let's go. Step 2. Oops. Let me just do this. Okay. Now we are here. So what should happen? Let me just do a refresh here. Is that, oh, now we have the two actions for the 17th March that we created. So what should happen now is that when we create a new action, when we create a new task, it should also revalidate here. So let's do here. In the task 13, because we want the 13th of March. Let's, oops, I clicked it submit by mistake, sorry. So I get here, 13th of March, and let's see. There should be a small blink here. Yeah, you see there's the small blink, and then it shows here. So if you see the code here, what's different? Well, at first for the get tags, for the get tasks, we had to add this tag here. NextJS has this built-in fetch function that's kind of an extension of the regular browser fetch that we have. And then we can send this param here, next, and we pass tags. Tags is an array of strings. In this case, we are passing tasks. And then when we do the revalidate tag tasks, we are saying to next, hey, our cache is not up to date anymore. We need to refresh all the data from it. So we kind of refreshed, no, we did, in fact, refetched all the data here from our tasks. So that's how it works. Very nice, very simple. There's not a lot of change. We just add a tag to our fetch function and then do a revalidate. But still, our form is not good yet, because although I'm seeing the new task appearing, I still do not see if my button is working, if my request is happening, because I will create a 14 now. And let's see what happens. I click here, and there's no visual feedback for me that I click there. It's very weird. I'll just click and hope that everything goes all right. And that's not good. And that's why we're going to our next chapter, which is we will deal with the state of the form. Let's see what changed now. So now on our create task here, we have a submit button. Instead of just being a regular button, this button is a special component because it has this hook here, the use form status. Before explaining it, let's see it happen. Set the form here, and it's a new button too. Very nice. New task 15 time. Let's go 15th of March. Let's submit it. Oh, now I have it's disabled, and oh, see, this is the error that we were talking for. So let me just refresh here and try again. So this time will be right. It's just 20% chance. It's very okay. The task 15, and then put here 15th of March, and let's submit it. Yeah, it's disabled and has this pending state, and now revalidated. So we kind of have like a bigger picture of what's going on. We have the revalidate happening. We can see while it's submitting, because I also added on my backend like I think it's 1 or 2 seconds delay on every request, so we can have those loading states. So I could show here. So it's nice. I click it, it's disabled because before it was not disabled. I could click like 10 times and it would do 10 subsequent requests. This time we only do one. That this is like an ideal behavior because we will not allow the user to submit a lot of requests, a lot of data without, I don't know, by mistake. So okay. So let's see how it works. We have this use form status here. This hook is kind of attached to the parent form. We can only call this submit button and have this working if we are calling it inside of a form component. In this case here, it's our flex. By the way, I'm using Chakra UI for the UI, so this is why you have those styled components here. Chakra UI, I like it, nice. But anyways, so we are calling it inside of a form, so we can use the use form status. React already gets like the first parent form and attaches the use form status to it. And it gives us 4 values. It gives the pending state of the form, which is a boolean that will tell us, hey, the form is submitting or the form is not submitting. And we use this pending state to disable the button and to show the spinner here. And then we also, it can have send us the data. When we have the action, we are seeing the form data here. Where is it? Here, we are seeing this form data. This form data is also available on our use form status. If we, I don't know, for some reason we needed this on this part here, or I don't know, another component of the form, we could call it. The method is the method used by our form action, and the action is our form action. It will return the ID of our form action, and where do we use that? So that's basically the use form status. And for this, I'm just using the pending because it's what fits my use case, as you can see it here. Okay, so I think this is for the states, but as you saw before, there are some times that we have some errors. Like if I remove the name here and I try to submit, it will not, it has an error on the backend. You can see the is an unprocessable entity. Have an error here, but nothing shows to the user here. How can he know? How can the user know that the data is wrong or something like this, that the request is not working? And that's where the error handling starts. So let's go to the next chapter. Oops, I did one term. The error handling step. Just, oops, there's the. You saw before we had a different error message. I was not expecting it here, but yeah, nice that we already have it. So we have this error.tsx. Is a syntax from NextJS that is like the page.tsx or the layout or the loading, because we have those default pages on Next now. And the error one is that as a page that will render when there's an error, like any throw error that we have, it will fit here. We'll get here. So when we go back to our create task, we can see that now we have if the response is not okay, like we have our fetch here. If the response is not okay, we will throw an error with the status text. That in our case will be unprocessable content if we submit without nothing. So yeah, unprocessable content. That's exactly what we were expecting. It got the error message on our error page, and it's in there. So that's I really like this feature for Next because we can take any kind of error and we already have a default page. We do not have to connect with anything. We don't have to think about states. Or it's just there. So you see, the only state that we have here is to closing and opens. It's to close and opening the form. Very nice. But there is a problem with it because we do not want to interrupt the flow of the user. Like every time that he puts wrong data, then it goes to another page. This is not a good UX. It's not pleasant to use an app like that. So that's why you add another layer to our error handling. That's just not the error TSX. This will remain here for the errors that might come from the page. But we will use a toast. You get the result of our server action, and we use it to show a message here for success or for error for the user. So let's go to our step 4.1. For 1, for everyone. 4.1. And let's see the difference here. Here's our form again. And then when we go here to our create task, oh, we have a use effect here. We have a use from state. This is news. So what does it do? Let's start with the use from state. This is a hook that allows us to get the result of a server action. So it receives two values. The first one is our server action, and the second one is our initial value. The value that we are getting from the server action is we are no longer throwing an error here. If the response is not okay, we will return a success message, a success state in a message. And if the fetch is successful, we return a success true in a message true. And with this, we can get the result and the form action here. Also, there's another detail. By using the form state, the function that we pass here does not only accept the form data, but it also accepts the previous state. So if you go back here to task, it has the previous state here that unfortunately we're not using because it didn't fit my use case. But it's the structure here that we created that has the success in the message. And if, I don't know, we need to use it to change or create another return here, we could use it. But the use from state, it returns us a result in the form action. But the form action is just like the regular form action that we were using before. And we still call it here action from action, the same way as we did. And then here we have the result. So for the result, now we have a toast here that runs on a use effect, because every time that the result changes, I want to show a toast. So for the first part here, if the success is false, it will show an error toast. But if the result is successful, then we show the success toast. So let's try it. Submit, and bam, that's it. You can even click here again and see it happening. Unprocessable content, please try again. And we could even add more stuff to it. We could get the errors from the API directly and then add to the message and have like, oh, the name can't be blank, or the date must be before, I don't know, some date, and validations there that we have on the backend. And it fails, we could just send it to the front end. But to make it short, I just did this simple message. And you also could add validation to our client. You could put those fields as required. But if I put them as required, then I would have to have a kind of effort happening to show the error handling, and I didn't want it. But it's also nice to have the validations here. To have the inputs as required, it's a good practice for the HTML. Anyways, so here it is. It's happening. It's very, very nice here. We have the result here, and nothing else changing. We do not have to, because if you're on an application, let's see everything that we have here. We already have a loading state here for the button. We have this error success. If you have we were on a regular client-side application, then have to have a lot of different states. You have to have states for the inputs. You would have to have states for the loading, for the error, for the result. So it will be a lot of hooks going on. And there's some libraries that solve those problems for us, such as React Query. But in this case, we don't even need a new library. We're just using React and its new features. That's very nice because we don't need to add another library on top of our library. But yeah, that's it for our handling. I hope you liked it, because now we are going to our next step. That is optimistic updates. Sorry, this is a hard word for me. I mispronounce it sometimes. I should just call it another name. Maybe instead of optimistic updates, we could call it Johnson or something like this. Let's go to our step 5. And now you see we have another layer on top of our server actions. We have the number of tasks for this month. So from March 1 to March 13, March 1st actually to March 30, we have 48 tasks. And if you want to create a new one, I want to update it, like do an optimistic update. So we'll create here a new task, and I'll set it to 24 March. You'll submit, and it instantly already increased the count, and it stays there once it's successful. Because that's the thing about optimistic updates. We want to show the new UI, the updated UI, even before the value, the request ended up on our server. We just want, hey, I believe in you. I know this will want to work, so let's just already update the UI, and the user will see it updated. and it gives us the feeling of responsiveness, of having a fast application, and that's very cool. Like when you are using social media and you click like on a button, it's already marked there as a like, there's already a heart there, and that's an optimistic update because even though it didn't finish yet on the server, you can already see there that you liked it, and that's a use case for it. But what if it fails? What if I send a invalid data here? It is updated here, but oh, look at it. It has an error, but we return it to the previous state. So it's like, okay, I tried here, it actually didn't go as well as I thought it would be going. So let's return to where we were before. And let's see how it works. So here we have the use optimistic hook from React. That's also a new hook that's coming on. We can already try it on the experiment React. If you try React Canary, you can already use it. NextJS by itself use React Canary, so that's why I'm able to use it on Next right now. But let's see how it's going. Use optimistic receives two values. The first one is the initial value. In our case, is the task count. I did a small change here on our page. So our get tasks by day, you now besides returning the tasks by day, it will return the tasks that we have on that month. So that's nice. And then we pass it to create task. Okay. It has this initial value. And then it has a function here, print state and date. I mean, this date could be the optimistic, I don't know how to write it, sorry. Optimistic value. Yeah, it could be this. It could be any value that we are passing here to our function. We'll get there. But in this case, it's our date. And it will check here if our date is on the same month. Then we will add one. If it's not in the same month, it will do nothing. Like if we get a date from February and we add it, it didn't change it because it's not on this month. So we do not need to add any number to it. So, okay. So let's see. Oh, it also has the returns from it. It has the optimist task count that we are using here. Instead of using the task count here, use the optimist task. Because what it does, it gets a task count here, it passes to our input hook, and it gives us the optimistic task that will almost always be the same as task count, except for those moments of the synchronization. So it's basically we are kind of going ahead of the server and just showing the value that we think will be, in this case, our optimistic task count that will be here. And then we also had the edge optimistic, that's a function that will do all that logic for us. And together with it, we have a small difference now on how we call our server action here. So before we just call the server action directly, but in this case, it's a bit different. We just do this edge optimistic, we pass the value that we want, and then we call the form action. And as you can see, first we're running this, we're already having the state being updated, and just then we have the form action and everything going on with the validation, with the with the pending state, with the error handling. This happens first. So this is how we deal with optimistic update. So basically this hook, it saves us the time of creating another hooks of having to synchronize all the data. It already does everything for us. We just have to worry about passing the function and calling it in the right place. And that's it. And I think this is a nice introduction of the React server actions, how to use them, how to integrate it with all the other hooks that React has, that it's creating right now to make a nice application. So in this case, we have some different logic going on. We have like this, we have 3 new hooks going on and on use effect. But if you would have to compare with everything that this form is doing on a regular client component, we would have to have a lot of more states to follow, with have more different logics and changes and bits and everything else. This way, our HTML is our JSX is very simple. We have a bit of logic here for the toast. We have a bit of logic here for the optimistic update, and we have a bit of logic here for the result of the error handling that's also following with the toast. So In my opinion, this really simplifies how do we interact with the API. It helps us write less code, and with less code, we also have less bugs. We have less entry points for mistakes, and that's one of my favorite things about React Server Actions. Although it's not production ready completely, it's experimental yet in React, we can already try it with Next 14, and I think it's worth it. I think that if you're using Next, it's already good enough for it to use in our application, and you just have to do some research because the documentation is not all complete yet. You have some. If you have different cases, you have to do a bit more trying, a bit more experimenting, but that's part of the process of trying new technologies. And that's it. I hope you all enjoyed this introduction to React Server Actions. Yeah, thank you very much. Have a nice day, everyone. Bye bye.